Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Ajam nirvikalpam nirakaramekam niranandamanandam advaita purnam param nirgunam nirvishesham niriham parabrahma rupam ganesham bhajema. Team Param Vedanta extends a warm welcome to one and all for today's 107th session of Bhagavad Gita verse by verse. Friends, this year Guru Purnima was on 13th of this month. We had a special program to celebrate and extend respects to all our gurus. You are aware of our tradition of offering collective Guru Dakshina to our gurus on 2 occasions in a year, namely Guru Purnima and Gita Jayanti. Earnestly continuing this tradition, we request all of you to send your voluntary contributions to the bank details, which shall be shared in our WhatsApp, Telegram groups, and also a slide shall be displayed at the end of today's session. Today, continuing study of Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, chapter 14 of Bhagavad Gita, verses 8 to 12, which shall be explained by our team of Param Vedanta teachers, Srimati Pallavi, Srimati Kirti Sridhar, Dr. Srinivas Rao Nuti, Srimati Rama Gopal Krishna, and Kumari Viksha, under the guidance of Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir, who will also give us an introduction to today's topic and also help us understand the key insights or important aspects of the verses. We shall be concluding with chanting of today's verses by young Master Pranam. But first, let us listen to a recap of the previous session from Sri Venkatesh Prasad. Over to Sri Venkatesh Prasad, sir.
Thank you, sir. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Chapter 14 begins with Lord Krishna's voluntary offer to teach out of sheer compassion. Shankaracharya often says, when the subject matter is very, very subtle, a teacher has to repeat it again and again. Krishna presents the main topic of this shatka, that is Gnana Yoga, again from a different angle. Previously, it was Kshetra Kshetragna Vibhaga. Now it is Gunatraya Gunatita Vibhaga. In Shloka 1, Krishna is telling Arjuna that he is once again teaching the supreme knowledge of Atma Vidya, which is the greatest of all Vidyas. He is promising Arjuna that by knowing this knowledge, the sages have reached the ultimate goal of moksha. Krishna has used the words Param and Uttamam, both meaning same, the greatest. We should know that first greatest stands for Vishaya Drishti Uttamam, the only knowledge which deals with the imperishable reality, and the second one indicates Phala Drishtya Uttamam, the only knowledge that which gives the greatest result of moksha. Krishna uses the word Munayaha, which means those seekers who have got all the necessary qualifications for attaining moksha. Another word he uses is Gata Itaha, and he means that they have attained Jivan Mukti while living. After death, they gain Videha Mukti also. Krishna says, what happens to the person who acquires this self-knowledge? Idam Gnanam Upashritya, by taking recourse or acquiring this knowledge, Mama Sadharnyam. The seekers have attained oneness with me, means they have attained Ishvara Swarupam, dropping their Jivatma. Ishvara Swarupam means Abhayam, freedom from insecurity, finitude, and Punarjanma. Sarge Apina Upajayate. They are not born again in the next Srishti. Pralayena Vyathanticha. At the time of Pralayam, they are not afflicted by the pain of death. They are free from Janana Marana cycle, which is Videha Mukti. O Arjuna, if you want to enjoy Jivan Mukti and also get the benefit of Videha Mukti, concentrate on this Gnan. Let's go to Shloka 3 in the next slide. In the 3rd and 4th verses, Krishna summarizes the process of creation, which he had dealt with in the 13th chapter. He said, before the creation, there were originally 2 principles known as Purusha and Prakriti, both of which are Anadi, beginningless. This mixture of Purusha, Prakriti, or consciousness matter is the cause of the creation. And this mixture alone is called Ishvara. In this verse, the Purusha Tattvam is compared to the father principle and the Prakriti Tattvam is compared to the mother principle. It is only symbolism to show that both the Tattvams put together alone can cause creation. Krishna says, I, the Mahat Brahma, Purusha Tattva, place the seed in Mama Yonihi, Prakriti Tattva. Placing the seed means blessing the Maya with Chidabhasa. The reflected consciousness will create the world. I activate Maya, then starts the origination of all beings. Next slide, sir. In verse 4, Krishna said that I am the universal father and Maya is the universal mother and we the universal couple, Jagatah Pitarau. And therefore, Krishna says, Aham Bija Pradah Pita. I am the universal father who activate, impregnate Maya, enliven Maya by blessing it with reflected consciousness, Chidabhasa Pradana. I bless the Maya and therefore I am the universal father. Mahat Brahma Yoni, as we saw in the previous verse, Mahat Brahma means the infinite Maya. Here also, the Brahma Yoni means mother principle. As we go to the next slide, from verse 5 to 18, Krishna discusses and analyzes all the three gunas. Ishvara is a mixture of consciousness and matter, and therefore, every one of us is also a mixture of both. Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are the three gunas born of Prakriti. The physical body, mind, and sense organs are material in nature and are made up of Prakriti Tattva. Ahankara, the body-mind complex, is Saguna, Savikara, Chetana. Purusha Tattvam or Sakshi Tattvam is the consciousness principle which is Nirguna, Nirvikara, Chetana. Krishna talks about the nature of each guna and how each guna binds a person and the consequences of that respective bondage. That is why the chapter is called Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. The gunas bind one to one's lower nature or ahankara by causing addiction to the setup which has three defects: dukkha mishritatvam, bandhatatvam, and atriptikaratvam. Next slide, sir. Verse 6 deals with Sattva guna. Among these three gunas of ahankara, when Sattva is predominant in a person, in the nature of Shuddha Sattva, not subdued by Rajas and Tamo gunas, Prakashakam, there is clarity in thinking. It is of the nature of brightness. That Sattva guna is Niramayam. There is tranquility, calmness of mind. Krishna says the Sattvic Ahankara seeks seclusion, quietude. This binds the Sattvic person. The second type of bondage is that the Sattvic mind is attached to knowledge and wants to think and know. Any amount of knowledge cannot make a Sattvic person satisfied with his internal possession of Gnana. Here, Gnana means the material knowledge, not Atma Gnana. But Aparavidya Sattvic person suffers from intellectual samsara since any type of dependency is bondage. Let's go to verse 7 with the next slide. Rajoguna is a source of desire and attachment. A Rajasic mind is highly extroverted and always wants to relate to things and people is pravritti pradhana. Raga means relationship, attachment. We require each guna to attain liberation. Panchamahayagna requires activity and hence requires Rajoguna. Trishna means the desire for an external thing, a lot of possession and people. Rajoguna binds the individual with the desire for things not possessed and attachment to things which are already possessed by making him attached to karma. It is required up to a particular stage. After that, one has to shift to Gnana Yoga. Karma Yoga has to be followed by Gnana Yoga. Let us listen to the discussion about Tamoguna and further analysis of all three gunas in today's class. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Venkatesh, for an excellent recap of the verses that we studied in the last class. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. We continue our second class on the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. In the 13th chapter, which was titled Kshetra Kshetrajna Viveka. We had Atma Anatma Viveka from the context of I am the seer, I am the drik, and everything else that I see is not me or drishyam. And that is how the 13th chapter separated Atma Anatma as Kshetra Kshetrajna. The 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is very similar in its approach in making a very clear distinction between Atma and Anatma. How do we do it? Anything that has attributes or qualities, that means if anything that I can see or experience, I can do so because it has some attribute. That which does not have any attributes is nirguna, cannot be an object of my experience, that is the subject. So this chapter talks about the same thing that we studied in the last class, what we studied as Kshetra Kshetrajna, now comes as Gunatraya Guna Atita Viveka. Shri Krishna has told in earlier verses like this in the 2nd chapter, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. All the Vedas talk about the 3 gunas, but what you have to do is go beyond the 3 gunas. How do we go about? And Shri Krishna has mentioned in the 7th chapter that it is extremely difficult for you to go across this because of the very powerful or very attractive Maya. But Mam eva ye prapadyante. But those who surrender to me, Maya metam tarantite. I will help you to get across this Maya. With this background, let us continue our verses from the 8th chapter, from the 8th verse of the 14th chapter, which will be explained to us by Pallavi. Over to you, Pallavi.
Namaste. Tamastvajnanajam vidhi mohanam sarvadehinam pramadalasya nidrabhi nibhadanti bharata. In this shlok, Krishna explains tamoguna lakshana and tamoguna bandhana prakara. Krishna says, Tamo hatu ajnanam tu vidhi. Tamo guna is born out of ajnanam, which is prakriti. Prakriti is the original source of this creation, which consists of all the 3 gunas, Sattva, Rajo, Tamo. Therefore, Tamo guna is equally born out of Prakriti or Maya, and it is important to have Tamo guna to a certain extent in our daily life. For example, like sleep. However, we are dealing with a predominance of Tamo guna, which causes problems. And what are these so-called problems? Let's understand them. Mohanatmakam, the nature of delusion. The first problem is that it suppresses the Sattva and Rajoguna. Since Sattva is suppressed, there is no clarity of thinking, due to which human life is never taken seriously. The precious time during young age is never utilized well. Therefore, they are leading a purposeless life, life without any goal. They are constantly moving with the flow of the samsara. For whatever so reason, if they have set some goals, the priorities are very unclear. Allocation of resources like health, knowledge, money, capabilities, limitations, discipline, planning, all of this is unclear. They're constantly focused and they're constantly confused and finally pick the escapism route. Hence, they miss their goal. In modern science, delusion is considered as a mental disorder problem as well. And there are some people who are so intensely deluded and powerful that when you talk to them to try to help them, they transfer their confusion to you. And you get confused as well. There are certain children who do not take studying seriously. They are doing everything else except studies. Parents are worried about their kids' studies and future. The child does not know the seriousness of life itself. Therefore, the nature of delusion is acceptable till a particular stage of life. After a certain point, it becomes a problem with the grown-ups and not being clear about life and its goals. The second problem is pramada alasya nidrabhi. Pramada means carelessness and negligence. Alasam is laziness or indolence, idling the time. Nidra means sleep. Such people do not utilize the body and mind as a manushya. Ani badnati bharata. Through these three habits, tamoguna binds a person. Therefore, most of the time, they are aware only of two avasthas, asleep or sleepy. They are not aware of the third stage of Jagrat Avastha at all. They do not acquire punyam or papa. And why is it so? Punyam and papa are karam phalam, and they do not do any karma. Therefore, there is an advantage to such people. They will not acquire much agami karma. So Krishna says, but remember that it is not a great achievement, as animals also do not acquire punyam or papa. At this stage, these people are similar to an animal. So next, thank you. It is a credit. Is it a credit? Is the perpetuation of bondage. Human life is a waste. So Krishna says, Tanni Bhadnati Bharata. Hari Om.
Thank you, Pallavi. So we saw in this verse that how tamoguna can be a bondage. And the biggest bondage is a person has not realized what a gift this human life is. And such a person is so bound by tamoguna that a person wastes this precious human life. Next verse 9 will be explained to us by Kirti. Over to you, Kirti.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, verse 9. Sattvam sukhe sanjayati rajah karmani bharata jnanam avrutya tu tamaha pramade sanjayatyuta. This verse says, Sattva binds one to material happiness, Rajas conditions one towards actions, and Tamas clouds wisdom and binds one to delusion. This verse is a summary of Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas, their Lakshanam and Bandhana Prakaraha. Swami Paramarthananda says, Sri Krishna wants us to understand the importance of knowing one's Prakriti, that is, the characteristics of the three gunas and their role in self-management and mastery for Atma Jnana. Each of the three gunas has two basic powers, Avarana Shakti, power of concealment, and Vikshepa Shakti, the power of projection. From these arise the vast array of gross bodies and subtle minds that comprise the manifest universe. The reality of things is the result of the unity of guna modifications. Gunas affect our entire body complex, physical, physiological, psychological, and energetic states, that is, our entire personality. Now the characteristics of the three gunas. Sattva is the nature of light, clarity, purity, insight, knowledge, intelligence, inspiration, peace, contentment, harmony, order, and beauty. Its essential power is that of revelation. Rajas is the nature of passion, desire, activity, motion, creativity, force, and will. Its essential power is projection. Tamas is the nature of density, heaviness, solidity, practicality, dullness, apathy, laziness, and ignorance. Its essential power is concealment. None of the gunas can be classified as good or bad. all the three gunas are necessary to sustain life. The character of each can have a positive or negative influence within the context of a given circumstance or endeavor. Guna guneshu vartante. Gunas in the shape of sense organs and mind get entangled among the gunas in the shape of objects of perception. Gunas will seek what is conducive for its nature, but when this desire becomes a binding one, then bondage or addiction begins. Swami Paramarthananda explains Bandhana Prakara of the three gunas. Sattvic mind develops Sukha and Jnana Sangena bondage because of its Shanta Vritti and is Nivritti Pradhana, always seeking seclusion, quietude, and renunciation. It is Aparigraha Pradhana, meaning it doesn't want to hold on to people, things, worldly possessions, wants to drop attachments that create disturbances. Sattva is also Gnanendriya Pradhana and has a greed for knowledge and suffers intellectual samsara. Rajasic mind develops karma sangena bondage and addiction because of its constant pursuit of activity, Krishna karma. Rajas is parigraha pradhana. It desires things not possessed and attachment to people and things that are already possessed and wants to hold on to everything. It's pravritti pradhana. So it is always interested in companionship, interaction, and growth. It binds the self by causing attachment to activity and fruits of action, making one a workaholic. And in case of failure in fulfilling one's binding desires, can lead to the individual being angry with ghora vritti and can transform into tamasic. Tamasic mind develops bondage due to mohanatmakam, meaning delusion. Tamas is born out of ajnana and to be the deluder of all beings. When tamoguna is predominant, it suppresses the sattva and rajoguna and develops mood vritti. When sattva is suppressed, there is no clarity of thinking. Human life is never taken seriously. Tamoguna binds a person by causing pramada, alasyam, and nidra. Prakriti predominance is unique in every individual. We as human beings can consciously change the levels of the gunas in the body-mind by altering the presence and influence of external objects, lifestyles, and thoughts. Samsara is the realm of gunas, and freedom is beyond the gunas. Self-mastery is guna management, which is a prerequisite for Atma Jnana. We have to use the gunas and then drop the gunas and claim our higher Kshetrajna Gunatita nature. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Kirti, for an excellent explanation of a very beautiful verse. And this is a summary verse. The summary verse talks about all the three gunas and how all the gunas can be a bondage, including sattva guna. Our whole objective is to move from tamoguna to rajoguna to sattva guna. But as even sattva can cause bondage, we have to jump from gunatraya to guna atita. The next verse will be explained by Dr. Srinivas Nuti. Over to you, Dr. Srinivas.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. The verse number 10 is like this. Rajas tamas chabhibhuya sattvam bhavati bharata. Rajas sattvam tamas chaiva tamaha sattvam rajas tatha. So let us see the meaning of each word. The first word, rajas tamas chabhibhuya. This can be split into rajaha. Ha has become sakara. Rajas. The sa is in place of visarga. Tamas cha. Shakara again is visarga. Rajaha tamaha chabhibhuya. That is cha plus abhibhuya. So this is the splitting of the first word. Rajas tamas cha abhibhuya means rajaha tamaha cha abhibhuya. Rajaha means we know very well mode of passion. Tamaha is mode of ignorance. Cha means and. So in general in English we read it as rajaha and tamaha, but in Sanskrit the cha will come afterwards. This is one of the differences. Rajaha tamaha cha means rajaha and tamaha. That is the meaning of that. Abhibhuya. Abhibhuya means another word in Sanskrit is atikramya. That means overcoming. Atikramya. Sattvam bhavati bharata. Sattvam is mode of goodness. Bhavati means becomes, or that comes as predominance. Bhavati becomes. There is similarity also. Looks like the word is directly, the becomes as taken directly from Sanskrit word. So bhavati means becomes. Bharata. Bharata here, Lord Krishna is addressing Arjuna as Bharata, not other 9 names. So there is a meaning in this. So Bha means knowledge of the self. Ratha means one who revels in the knowledge of the self. So that is what is Bharatiya, means Indianness. So one who is not just interested in this materialistic world, but who is more interested in the knowledge of the self. So that's what is the meaning of Bharata. So the next line is Rajas. Previous slide, sir. Rajas Sattvam Tamas Chaiva. Rajaha, again same, Sattvam is explained. Tamas Chaiva can be split as Tamaha plus Cha plus Iva. Iva means like that. Cha, again, so here what he's telling is Raja, sometimes the mode of Rajaha, that is the mode of passion, can overcome Sattva and Tamaha. And Cha Iva means like how earlier sometimes Sattva predominates, some other times the Rajaha predominates. So the next line is Tamaha Sattvam Rajas Tatha. Similarly, some other times the mode of ignorance predominates the mode of goodness and the mode of action or passion. If we look into the Anvaya, how we should read is E Bharata Rajaha Tamaha cha abhibhuya sattvam bhavati. Rajaha sattvam cha abhibhuya tamaha eva bhavati. Tatha tamaha sattvam abhibhuya Rajaha bhavati. So basically what he's telling in this verse is sometimes the Sattvam predominates, sometimes the Raja predominates, sometimes the Tamaha predominates. So this is a very important verse as far as seeker is concerned during his initial periods. So we are well known that the modes of Tamaha and Rajaha has to be overcome, and we should increase the mode of Sattvam. So here this verse, what it is telling is, if the mode of Sattva increases, the other 2 modes automatically goes down. So there is no need to try to decrease our attitude, the Tamaha and Rajaha aspect of our attitude, because they are very, very difficult. It's very difficult to decrease. So easiest way, this is an alternate pathway. So instead of trying to reduce the modes of Tamaha and Rajaha, just simply try to increase the mode of Sattva. Automatically reduce the modes of Tamaha and Rajaha. So now, how to increase this mode of Sattva, that we also very well known. In Bhagavatam, there is a verse for this. Agamopa praja deshaha kalaha karmacha janmacha dhyanam mantra samskaram dashaite guna hetavaha. So these are the 10 features the Bhagavatam says how to increase our Sattva guna. That is Shastram, reading of Shastras. That is, we should read only good books. That increases that Upanishads and all our texts, Puranas, Itihasas. So reading these things will increase the Sattva guna, as opposed to reading some novels and all those things, which may not increase the Sattva guna. So Jalam is considered the Tirtha Jalam in the Tirthas, that is in the temple complexes, or river water is supposed to be sattvic, as opposed to alcoholic drinks and all those things. So Janulu means again people. So we should be in good satsangi of the good people like rishis and acharyas and sattvic people. Then our sattvic nature also will increase. Pradesham, again temples, tirthayatras, those things, as opposed to alcoholic places and clubs and all those things are considered as tamo predominant. Kalam means early morning time is considered Sattva predominant, and afternoon time is Rajo predominant, and night time is Tamo predominant. Karmas, the karma what we do without expecting the result is Sattva predominant. Expecting the result is Rajo predominant, and harming others is Tamo predominant. Dhyanam, mantram, samskaras. Similarly, so these are the 10 modes, 10 things which Bhagavatam advises us to increase the Sattva guna, Rajogunas. Just simply try to increase the Sattva guna, so that will take us nearer to the Lord. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Srinivas, for giving us a nice explanation and also giving us how to enhance, whenever you want to enhance Sattva, as you rightly said, the other two gunas automatically get suppressed, and you told us how this can be done. And also very nicely, you reminded us about Bharata. Bharata means spiritual knowledge, and the one who revels in it is the Bharatiya, and let us all be Bharatiyas all the time. The next verse, verse 11, will be explained to us by Srimati Rama Gopala Krishna. Ramaji, please.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, verse 11. Lord Krishna described the definition of gunas, their bandhana prakaraha, that is how each guna binds a person, and influence of gunas in the verses 9 and 10. Arjuna had a question that how to know when a particular guna is dominating over the other gunas. Answering this in the verse 11, Sri Krishna explains the indications to know whether one's nature is sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic at any given time. We see the shloka in the next slide. Sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasha upajayate nanam yada tada vidyat vibruddham sattvam ityuta. The translation is, when the light of intelligence shines through every gate of this body, then it may be known that sattva is predominant. Now let us see the word by word meaning. Yada, when, asmin dehe, sarva dvareshu, in all ways, that is senses, prakashaha, brightness or the absorption of nanam upajayate, knowledge develops, tada, then, sattvam, mode of goodness or sattva is vibruddham, predominant. That is iti, that vidyat, one should know. Now let us learn more about working of senses in the next slide. Sri Krishna gives more subjective insight into symptoms produced by the dominant sattva guna. At any given time, more active Gnanendriyas indicate prominence of sattva guna, more functional Karmendriyas indicate prominent Rajoguna, and inactivity of both Indriyas indicate Tamoguna prominence. The characteristic marks that indicate the predominance of Sattva guna are described in this verse as Sarvatvareshu dehesmin prakasha upajayate. At every gate of the body, the light of intelligence shines. The word dwara usually means door or gate, but here it refers to the sense organs. They are our means of knowledge, and dwarani means indriyani, the 5 sense organs, namely eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. These sense organs receive stimuli from the world and also convey our internal state to the world. The light of knowledge within, pouring out through the eyes, becomes the power of vision and lights up all the names and forms in the objective world. The same eternal awareness through the ears perceives the world of sound around me. Every beam of light emerging from each window in the body can only light up their respective objects in the world outside. For example, the ears can only perceive the sound and not touch. The word prakashaha in the next slide in the verse shows the indicator of sattva guna. Prakashaha means illumination of the generated gnana vrittis. It is a function of intelligence, the internal organ. When gnanam or knowledge shines or radiates, then it may be known that sattva has increased greatly. The consciousness reflected in the intellect is the light of intelligence by which we perceive the world of ideas, feelings, or objects available in our life. The sunlight outside never lights the object in the room directly. It always lights the sun, it is always the light of the sun reflected on the walls that lights up the things in the room. Similarly, the light of consciousness reflected in the intellect is the beam of light that illuminates the objective world. The functioning of mind and intellect are influenced by these gunas. A clean and steady reflecting medium will reflect more efficiently than an unsteady and unclean surface. Therefore, the very knowing and comprehending the world indicates the predominance of sattva guna at that given moment. In a sattvic person, radiance of calmness and peace shines through the sense organs, especially the eyes. The indicators of rajoguna and tamoguna are briefed in the verses to follow. Thank you. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Thank you very much, Ramaji, for a nice explanation. As always, very nicely explained with painstakingly made slides about the indicators of the three gunas. The last presentation today will be by Viksha. Viksha, please.
Thank you, Doctor. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Lobha pravritir arambah karmanam ashamaspriha rajas etani jayante vivriddhe bharatarshabha. Next slide, Doctor. Shri Krishna addresses Arjuna as Bharatarshabha, the foremost scion of the Bharata dynasty, and enumerates the marks of a person who is under the influence of Rajas. He says that whenever our mind generates thoughts of greed, selfish activity, commencement of action, unrest or uneasiness, and desire for even trivial things, we should realize that we are under the sway of Rajas. In fact, we consider this to be our natural state of mind, especially during the waking hours of the day. Let us understand how one becomes Rajas dominant with the help of a gold watch as an example. If we look at the first half of the shloka in reverse order, we start with spruha, which is a selfish desire for objects that have nothing to do with our duties. For example, a gold watch. Frequent thoughts for acquiring the gold watch lead us to ashama, or relentlessness, where we are not satisfied with our present situation and want to do something else. We then begin to act, karmanam arambaha, so that we can acquire this gold watch. Our plans may lead us to do something do like a part-time job, or withdraw from our savings, which is pravritti, engaging in selfish action. Even after we acquire the gold watch, we are not satisfied and want another one. This is lobha, or greed, the height of rajasic influence on our mind. It is not easy to detect whether our actions are prompted by selfishness or not. Only a pure mind that has been cleansed of selfishness through karma yoga with the aid of a guru can recognize the subtle difference between sattvic and rajasic actions. Karma yoga teaches us to analyze our qualification and proclivity for selecting an appropriate vocation. If we are trained to become an actor and are also passionately interested in acting, then that becomes our vocation. There is a baseline level of rajas that is needed to perform actions towards fulfilling the duties of our vocation, which is perfectly fine. Shri Krishna says that we need to watch our signs when rajas increases, beyond that baseline level where selfishness creeps into our actions. Therefore, to conclude, he who wants everything every time will lose everything anytime. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Viksha. Another nice explanation of how to be able to regulate your gunas. Essentially, all these verses are trying to tell us about the importance of understanding our gunas so that we can evolve from tamas to rajas to sattva and finally identify with our gunatita nature. Our next class on the 25th of July will be a Disha 19, where we are revising about Bhagavad Gita along with Tattva Bodha. We'll have chanting by Pranav of the verses we have studied today. Pranav, please.
Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Tamastvajnanajam vidhi mohanam sarvadehinam pramadarasya nidrabhihi tannibhatnati bharata sattvam sukhe sanjayati rajah karmani bharata ज्ञानमावृत्य तु तमः प्रमादे संजयत्युत रजसभिभूय सत्वं भवति भारत रजः सत्वं तमश्चैव तमः सत्वं रजस्तथा सर्वद्वारेषु देहेऽस्मिन् प्रकाश उपजायते दानं यदा तदा विद्यात् विवृद्धं सत्त्वमित्युत लोभः प्रवृत्तिरारम्भः कर्मणामशमस्पृहा रजस्येतानि जायन्ते विवृद्धे भरतर्षभ हरिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ.
Friends, as announced earlier, kindly send your voluntary contribution to enable us to offer our collective Guru Dakshina to our Gurus on the occasion of Guru Purnima. A slide with the bank details shall be displayed for your reference after our closing prayer, Purnamada. Please make your voluntary contributions early. Now, hearty thanks to our respected Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir and all the teachers of Param Vedanta for your excellent presentations, and our young Master Pranav for your wonderful and flawless chanting of the day's verses in your young, innocent voice. Thank you, participants, for joining us in today's study. Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir has already given us an introduction to the next session of Disha. Before you join the Bhagavad Gita verse by verse, remember to join us at 6:45 p.m. local time on Monday the 25th for the 19th session of Disha. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.